Zohran Mamdani has just won the electoral race for the next mayor of New York City against Trump-supporting Curtis Sliwa and the sex pest Andrew Cuomo. A self-described democratic socialist, community organizer, and currently one of the most prominent leftist voices in American politics since Bernie Sanders, he now's been elected as the mayor of New York City, a city that has for the last several decades been the stronghold of real estate capital protected by corporate Democrats. His campaign was not about vague slogans of hope or unity or whatever the fuck Kamala Harris's campaign was about, but rather it was about improving the direct material conditions of everyday New Yorkers through clear and direct policies of public transit for all, freezing the rent, punishing landlords, and overall making the city more affordable. For many, including ourselves, his victory represents the biggest breakthrough for the American left since the early Bernie Sanders wave of 2016-2020. A clear proof that the word socialism can actually win elections, even in the heart of the capitalist empire. But what does this really mean? Is this the beginning of a new socialist era in the United States, or another moment where the popular energy gets trapped inside the institutions that it sets out to challenge? We can see a clear pattern of what we could call a renaissance of social democracy. But what does that mean? What does the ideology actually stand for? Is it left, right, radical, moderate, up, down? Let me explain. Social democracy first emerged from the workers' movements of the 19th century, rooted in the same tradition that produced Marxism. Boo, scary. But it focused more on the immediate conditions of the working class rather than building a revolution. In countries like Germany, Britain, and even the United States, social democratic parties fought for universal suffrage, labor rights, and what today we could consider the welfare state. Thanks to the victories of these parties, you right now, if you live in the West, most likely have universal healthcare, pensions, access to housing, and public education, and your child is hopefully not working in the same factory as you are. That was not a thing before social democracy and the overall labor movement. These parties showed that class struggle could win reforms, and that the working class could organize politically on a massive scale. But that's also kind of exactly part of the problem. They were all reforms, only reforms of the capitalist system towards slight improvements, not addressing the main disease. When the revolutionary moment actually arrived in the mid-1910s with the devastating consequences of the First World War, social democratic parties all sided with capital against the class struggle. They supported the war, crushed illegal worker uprisings, and integrated themselves into the management of capitalism rather than toppling it. The SPD in Germany voted for war credits in World War I. The Labour governments in Britain suppressed colonial independence movements, and the Swedish model, that is often praised by people like Bernie Sanders, was built on imperialist profits from the Third World. In every case, reform replaced revolution. The goal shifted from overthrowing capitalism to administering it in a more humane way. Social democracy became not a bridge to socialism, but a safety mechanism for capitalism's survival. So what does social democracy look like today? Why is it not enough to stop capitalism, and why can't we just reform our way out of capitalism? Us revolutionary socialists recognize the value of reforms. We fight for every electoral gain that improves workers' conditions and every victory that builds class consciousness. But we also recognize that without the complete conquest of political power by the working class, reforms will always be temporary and reversible the moment that capital feels threatened. This is how you get someone like Hitler, Mussolini, Trump, Milei, Beidel, Abascal, Meloni, etc., etc. While social democracy started in the Marxist traditions, with some of the most famous theorists like Rosa Luxemburg or Vladimir Lenin being part of those parties, over the last 100 years those parties transformed from being mass organizations into social liberal free market parties we see today. Your party is a direct response to the neoliberalization of the Labour Party, but there is no guarantee that the same won't happen to your party. The Labour Party in the UK, SPD in Germany, Parti Socialiste in France, all slightly social but mainly neoliberal parties raising the flag with the red and rose, and all staunchly pro-Israel even 2 years into the genocide. With the mild exception of Pedro Sanchez's PSOE party in Spain, though that was also more talk than action. Is this really a labor movement or the co-option of revolutionary fervor into temporary reforms? Social democracy, for all of its pacifist moral intent, accepts the boundaries of the capitalist system, boundaries that were placed there by the capitalist class. It tries to redistribute wealth without seizing the means of production. It manages exploitation rather than abolishing it. And in doing so, it becomes dependent on the very system that it claims to oppose. So the question isn't whether Mamdani's victory is good. It is. It represents the real discontent of the working class and the true potential of a socialist politics to take root in the heart of an empire. But the real question is, what comes next? Will this energy be used to build independent revolutionary working class power, to organize workers, tenants, immigrants, and the poor, or will it be once again absorbed into the machinery of the state that exists to defend private property and not the people?